It was another buzzer beater for the Toronto Blue Jays. It was not a trade, but it was a signing of Trey Savage, their first round pick this year, the 20th overall pick. There was a lot of concern amongst Blue Jay fans that they would not get a deal done and that he would return back to college, but he has signed over slot value and he will be in the Blue Jays farm system probably as soon as this year. The updates have not come out yet in terms of the rankings for the Toronto Blue Jays top prospects, but you got to believe that Savage will be in the top five, and he'll be a big name to follow as the years roll along here. And I'm sure he'll be in the major leagues before long, but we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. Welcome in everybody to Jays Digest. I'm your host Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And Nick, this was an issue that was kind of on the back burner amongst Jays Twitter because obviously we were talking about the deadline and selling off assets, and Trey Savage kind of slipped our minds. But the diehard Blue Jay fans, they were wondering when were they going to get this deal done? And the Blue Jays, when the clock almost struck midnight on them, they got a deal done, and he's going to be in their farm system pretty soon and going to rise through the ranks, is my assumption.
Yeah, the deadline was a few hours from now, and luckily that's for signing all prospects, and luckily they got it done. But you mentioned it, the trade deadline kind of shadowed this, but before the trade deadline, there was a lot of Jays fans worried, and I was not worried necessarily. I figured they'd get it done, but I was worried that maybe they weren't going to get it done. But just then, breaking news, they signed, made a huge signing here, signing first rounder Trey for a one. Obviously, or a $4.1 million signing deal there. So you mentioned how it's over slot here, and I love the deal. We had a video on this way back when they first signed him. He's a very MLB ready prospect. He won't play for the Jays this year, obviously, but maybe next year or the year after. We'll go into the signing in depth here now. But Peter, I love this deal. Yeah, you had to pay a bit more, but the fact they got it done is very important because there were some rumors circulating. Hey, why hasn't he signed? Why hasn't he? Why haven't the Jays got this done? They ultimately did, even if it was about 6 hours prior to the deadline here, which was a little bit worrisome, but they got him done.
And this was someone that the Jays really wanted at number 20, and they didn't know if he was going to be available at that pick. So he's unlike any pick that we've seen in recent memory from the Blue Jays because he's MLB ready or more MLB ready than, let's say, a high school lottery ticket prospect like Arjun Namala, even though Namala has been fantastic, and we'll have a video on him very soon because he's absolutely tearing up single A ball. But Trey Savage is a guy who was fantastic in college. He's someone who has great stuff, a four pitch mix, and will definitely be someone to look out for, not just in the Blue Jays system, but among all prospects around Major League Baseball. He fell in the draft because of some injury history and maybe some uncertainty about how he's going to progress in the next year or two. But I'm really happy with this pick. I'm glad that the Blue Jays got a deal done. It is over slot value. It's $100,000 over slot value, so not a groundbreaking figure by any stretch. But this was something that the Blue Jays needed to get done. And like you said, Nick, I think we're going to see him very soon in a major league uniform because he has a lot of college experience and he's someone who's a bit of an older prospect and figures to be a part of the Blue Jays' short-term future very soon.
Yeah, and the Jays are really good in this draft, and they've really done a great job replenishing a weak farm system now, which we'll get into in a minute. But you can see here from Jim Callis, he's a big prospect guy. So first rounder Trey Savage has signed with the Toronto Blue Jays at a $4.1 million. The slot or the average slot value for the 20th pick is about all, like you said, Peter, $105,000 less. But you can see here, he, out of ECU baseball, right-handed pitcher, is one of the most dominant pitchers in the MLB draft. Gets outs with four pitches, a fastball touching as high as 98 miles an hour with carry, and a mid-80s slider, and a low 80s curveball and splitter. Like, every prospect ranker at the time said he was a bit of a steal for the Blue Jays. Surprised that he fell this low, and they got the deal done with him. And again, just hours ahead of the deadline to do so, he signed. He turns 21 this week. He posted a 2.03 ERA in 93 innings over 15 starts, striking out 145 with just 32 walks. Like, Peter, he's an electric arm. He has an electric arm, can touch
Yeah.
high 90s, and they got him done. And I'm very excited about this because I was starting to get a little bit worried as the clock started to tick closer to Thursday here.
Yeah, and understandably, a lot of Blue Jay fans were, and they're still yet to sign a couple of prospects. I believe they're going to return back to college, but he was the big one. Trey Savage was the one that needed to get done, and they ended up doing it. And yeah, he does have an electric arm, Nick, but he's more of I wouldn't say a finesse pitcher, but he just strikes me as a guy who can execute
Yeah.
pitch after pitch. And he's not just a one-trick pony with the high 90s fastball. He's got a fantastic slider, which is actually his best pitch, according to most scouts that have done work on him. So that's a very exciting thing for me as well. It's not just his fastball that can touch the high 90s, it's his ability to control the strike zone and to execute multiple pitches at a high level. He's got three plus pitches, according to most scouts, and the ability to probably develop a fourth plus pitch, which is going to be very interesting to follow as his development just continues to keep going here. And I'm excited to see him go. I think he's going to be probably in double A very soon, or have a start in single A and then maybe get moved up to double A. There's no point in rushing him for this season, but he could maybe be in the mix as soon as next year because the Blue Jays don't have that many healthy pitchers, and their prospects aren't necessarily healthy either. So it wouldn't hurt to give him a look if he's progressing really well in the minor leagues to start off his professional baseball career.
Yeah, we're at the point now where we're really looking at all these prospects. That's what there is to look forward to over the next little bit. And speaking of that, Peter, I did cover this in yesterday's video a little bit, but I also have some other things. So again, these are the top, just kind of discussing how the Jays did the trade deadline prospect wise. They got a few prospects. Jake Bloss, the headliner of the Kikuchi trade, is the third best prospect according to Baseball America out of the prospects traded. But a bigger note here, this is MLB Pipeline's newly updated top 30 list, not including, these are only the top 10 obviously, but not including Trey Savage because he obviously only just signed. But Peter, it's looking a hell of a lot better than it did a few weeks ago. Obviously, Namala's really on a burner. Ricky Tiedemann is still number one. Orelvis is still number two. And Orelvis is on track. He can return this year if they do want to give him some games in the majors. I doubt that'll happen, but
Yeah.
Orelvis is not completely gone. Tiedemann's going to be gone next year with his injury. But Jake Bloss slots in at number 3. They got a few more top 10 or top 30 prospects. Jonathan Clase slots in at number 8, which is someone you got for a reliever. I mean, you got 2 top 10 prospects in your system for
Yeah.
2 reliever pitchers. So I'm really liking what they did, and we're starting to see Addison Barger pick it up at the major league level as well. The system really started to get a lot better after it was thinned out over the past few years.
Yeah, and there were 8 names that replaced other prospects in the top 30. So the Jays acquired 8 top 30 prospects, and one name that is not shown over there is that of Charles McAdoo,
Yeah.
who was the pickup in the Isaiah Kiner-Falefa trade with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's the Blue Jays' number 14 prospect right now. So they did really well in replenishing the back end, or like the mid end of their um of their prospect pool, and they did get a couple of top prospects to beef up that top 10, but still I think the Blue Jays acquired a lot of organizational depth, and if they hit on, let's say, 3 or 4 of those players, I think it was a really successful deadline. Regardless, I think the deadline was successful because you got rid of some assets that were not going to be around for next season, and you managed to replenish a farm system that was widely regarded as one of the worst in Major League Baseball. So the Blue Jays did well. I'd like to see how these players progress, and that way we can give a full assessment on how Ross Atkins did at the 2024 deadline. But just overall positive, and Trey Savage definitely going to slot into the top 5 is once he has a profile on Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it's starting to look a lot thicker now, this thing. And you can see Jonathan Clase, his ETA is this year is 2024, so he could come up as soon as this year and see what he
And
does with
70 grade speed, Nick.
yeah.
70 grade speed for Jonathan Clase. And sorry to interrupt, but the Blue Jays did great in getting guys that have high ceilings and have a tool or two that really stand out. And Clase is one of those guys, and as is Jake Bloss. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, and Jake Bloss' ETA is 2026, but he's already made 3 starts for the Astros this year, and he figures to at least figure into the rotation next year, given some of the injuries to Manoah, to Tiedemann, and all these guys. So it's a very exciting time, even though they aren't playing to win. And Liperfito is not in here either because he's graduated out of the major leagues. He would have been a top prospect, probably a top 10 definitely in the Jays system as well. So let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that, and the thoughts on the new Savage of Trey Savage, the new signing, sorry, of Trey Savage. And we'll see you guys soon.